Most people don't stay poor because they make bad decisions. They stay poor because they make the right decisions too late. Let me show you two people. Person A is 30 years old, has a decent job, isn't broke, and does everything right. They work hard, pay their bills, and even try to save, yet every month feels the same. Paycheck comes in, paycheck goes out. Now look at person B. They're 27, don't earn that much more, had no lottery win, and no crypto miracle, but somehow their net worth is already over $300,000. Not flashy, not loud, just quietly ahead. Here's the part most people get wrong. The difference between these two lives didn't start at 27, didn't start with a promotion or a lucky investment. The difference started at 14 years before money felt serious, and years before most people even thought about finances. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact decisions in the exact order that quietly separate these two paths. Not hacks, not motivation, just the system that compounds whether you notice it or not. If you're new here, my name is Victor. I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about money, not in a flashy way, but in a why does this work for some people and not for others kind of way. Over the years, I've watched people with high incomes stay stuck. And I've watched people with average jobs quietly build real wealth. Same economy, same markets, very different outcomes. And here's what this video is not about. This is not hustle porn. It's not crypto tricks. It's not wake up at 4 a.m. and manifest a Lamborghini. This is about leverage time skills and a few boring decisions made earlier than everyone else's decisions you can actually apply. If you want to play the long game, hit subscribe. If you're willing to think long-term tap-like, let's get into it. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes with money. They obsess over what to do, what to invest in, what side hustle to start, what degree to get. They jump from idea to idea, hoping one of them finally works. But wealth isn't built by what you do. It's built by when you do it. The same action done at the wrong time barely moves the needle. Take investing, for example. Someone who invests $200 a month, starting at 18, can end up with more money than someone who invests twice as much, starting at 30, not because they're smarter or picked better stocks, but because time did the heavy lifting. Even if the market is average, that's leverage. There are only 3 levers that actually matter, and they don't show up all at once. They appear at different ages. The first is time leverage, your teenage years, when money is small, but time is massive, and starting early beats starting big. The second is skill and income leverage from your late teens into your early 20s, when learning fast matters more than earning fast, and choosing skills over comfort experience over titles pays off. The third is capital allocation leverage in your 20s, when boring decisions like investing, consistently avoiding bad debt, and living below your means quietly decide your future. This video isn't a checklist, it's a timeline, and money only works when you follow it in order. Your teenage years are not about getting rich, that's the mistake. This phase is about building an advantage that becomes almost impossible to catch up to later. Not money, but leverage. Think of it like a race. 2 people start at the same time. One starts 10 steps ahead, the other is faster. Speed helps, but the gap rarely closes. If you're under 18, your biggest asset isn't talent or motivation. It's time, and time only works if it's invested. At this age, you don't need a complicated strategy, you don't need to pick stocks, and you don't need a lot of money. This isn't about trading or taking risks. It's about exposure and habit. You just need to start, usually through a custodial account opened by an adult, where the money is yours and grows quietly in the background. Think birthday money, holiday cash, small amounts most kids would spend in a weekend. Inside that account, keep it simple. A low-cost index fund, something boring that doesn't require your attention. The goal isn't excitement, it's exposure. You're not trying to win, you're trying to be in the game. Here's what most people don't understand. Your first $100 at 13 is more powerful than $10,000 at 30, not because it's more money, but because it gets decades of compounding. You can never buy back. Imagine 2 jars in one. You drop $100 at 13 and forget about it. In the other, you wait until life feels serious and drop in $10,000 at 30. The second jar looks impressive, but the first one wins because it had time to work while no one was watching. The second advantage you have as a teenager is freedom. No rent, no real bills, no one depending on you, which makes this the safest time in your life to try things that might not work. Think of it as a sandbox. You can break things here without breaking your future. Try everything: sports, creative work, selling things, fixing things, working with your hands, working with people not to make money yet, but to find signal. Someone who edits videos for fun at 14 doesn't look special, but at 22, that same skill pays rent. Most people say they have no talent, but what they really mean is they quit as soon as something stops being fun. They tried guitar for 2 weeks, coding for a month, a sport for 1 season. That's not discovering talent, that's avoiding discomfort. Talent gets you noticed, discipline gets you paid. When you find something you're even slightly good at, don't jump to the next thing. Stay. Practice when nobody's watching. Show up when it's boring. That's how a hobby quietly turns into a skill, and that's where optionality is built. Now let's talk about money. Not investing money, not spending money, but stashing money. Saving usually means I'm putting this aside to spend later. Stashing means I'm building a launch pad. One disappears, the other creates options. Ask for cash instead of gifts. Work small jobs, weekend work, summer jobs, things most people your age think are beneath them, like cleaning retail or helping someone move. Not to feel rich, but to avoid the worst starting position in life, zero. Starting adulthood with $0 forces you into bad decisions. You take the first job that says yes, finance things you can't afford, and borrow just to breathe. Even a small stash, a few hundred, a few thousand buys you time to choose. Time to say no, time to move strategically while everyone else is rushed. If you do this part right, your 20s don't feel stressful or rushed. They feel strategic, and that's where the real game begins. Turning 18 feels like freedom. You can sign contracts, open accounts, and make your own decisions, but financially, it's something more important. It's the moment you stop preparing for the game and start building the system you'll play it with. Think of it like setting up an operating system before installing any apps. The first mistake most people make at 18 is focusing on making more money. They pick up extra shifts, chase overtime, and hustle, but money without structure just leaks out faster, like pouring water into a bucket with holes. You need 2 places for your money, one for flow, where income comes in and gets spent on life, and one for storage, where money is meant to sit. If everything lives in one account, everything feels spendable, and that's why it disappears. Your storage account isn't for investing. It's for stability, an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months of basic expenses. Not because something will go wrong, but because when something does, like a job loss, a car repair, or a medical bill, you don't want panic making financial decisions for you. Now, let's talk about something most people misunderstand: credit. You've probably been told credit is bad and debt is dangerous, and that's only half true. Fire is dangerous too, but it also cooks your food. Consumer debt is dangerous, financing clothes, gadgets, and lifestyle upgrades, but credit itself is just a tool. And like any tool, it depends on how you use it. Used correctly, credit doesn't cost you money. It saves you money through lower interest rates later, better loan options, and more leverage when it actually matters, like mortgages, business loans, and real assets. The rule is simple: use credit for things you already buy anyway. Groceries, gas subscriptions, and pay it off in full every month. No balance, no interest. You build trust with the system without paying a fee. Credit should build your future, not fund your lifestyle. Now comes the part most people skip: not what you invest in, but where your investments live. Think of it like choosing a container before you pour anything in. A tax-advantaged account, like a Roth IRA or an ISA, isn't exciting, but it's powerful because it lets your money grow without being eaten alive by taxes. It's the difference between filling a bucket with a lid and one with a hole at the bottom. And you don't need a lot to start. Fractional shares mean you can invest a few dollars at a time. Think coffee money. One coffee doesn't matter, but every day does. What matters isn't the amount, it's consistency. Automate it so investing happens before spending, like brushing your teeth. You don't decide each morning whether to do it, it just happens. If you never see the money, you won't miss it, and that's the point. Here's the insight most people miss. Most people try to grow money before they build containers for money. So they invest randomly, save inconsistently, move money in and out, and then wonder why nothing sticks. It's like trying to carry water with your hands. No matter how much effort you use, it keeps slipping away. Build the system first: accounts, rules, automation. Then let the system work while you focus on living your life. That's how money stops feeling fragile and starts feeling stable. Your 20s are where most people finally start making money. And that's exactly why most people mess this part up, because they think this phase is about buying things. It's not. These aren't purchases, they're leverage decisions. What you buy in your 20s decides what works for you and what works against you for decades. Let's start with the most important one: income engines. Not jobs, not titles, not career identity, but something that can make money without asking permission. This is where side hustles come in, and no side hustles are not free. The biggest lie on the internet is that you can build income without putting anything in. Every real side hustle requires investment tools, software equipment, sometimes education, a camera, a laptop, a website, a paid tool that saves you hours. In your 20s, this is one of the highest return purchases you can make, because unlike a car, clothes, or a nicer apartment, these things produce cash flow. The goal isn't to chase whatever's trending, it's to stack skills you already have or can realistically build and turn them into income. Skills turn into services, services turn into cash flow, and cash flow buys freedom. And here's the hidden benefit. When you're not dependent on a single paycheck, you think differently, negotiate differently, take smarter risks, and stop making fear-based decisions. That's leverage. Now let's talk about the most boring part of this video: ownership, specifically index funds. They're not exciting, they don't make good screenshots, and they won't impress anyone at a party. And that's exactly why they work. Index funds are the slow, quiet machine that builds wealth in the background while you focus on everything else. They don't require timing or genius, they just require consistency. Here's the unfair part. If you invest steadily in your 20s, you're not competing with people your age. You're competing with people who start 10 years later, and that's not a fair fight. Time plus boring decisions beats intelligence plus excitement almost every time. The market doesn't reward intensity, it rewards duration. This is why automation matters. Money invested before you see it doesn't get debated, doesn't get rationalized away, and doesn't get spent, it just works. Here's how these two levers work together. Your income engines create excess cash, and your ownership puts that cash to work. One gives you control, the other gives you compounding. Most people only have one. The people who get ahead build both. And notice, what we didn't talk about: no day trading, no get-rich-quick plays, no financial gymnastics, just systems that reward showing up longer than everyone else. And we're not done yet, because once income and ownership are in place, the next decisions you make either multiply this leverage or quietly destroy it. Let's keep going. Now, let's talk about something people misunderstand completely: travel. Most people travel to look interesting, but smart people travel to become dangerous in a good way. Dangerous because their thinking changes. This isn't about luxury trips, Instagram, or flexing experiences you can't afford. That's just consumption with a different label. Real travel is perspective training. When you navigate unfamiliar places, figure out transportation in a city you've never been to, and solve problems without your usual support system, your brain starts asking better questions. You might meet someone running a small business in another country, working online from a cafe, or living well on less than you thought was possible, and suddenly you realize what you thought was normal was just local. Then there's the network effect. You sit next to someone on a train, talk to someone in a hostel kitchen, grab coffee with someone doing work you didn't even know existed, and sometimes one conversation plants an idea that changes the next 10 years. That's leverage you can't spreadsheet. Next is education, but not the kind that leaves you with debt and no leverage. Think about the difference between learning and paying to feel like you're learning. Degrees can be useful, and in some paths, they're required doctors, engineers, licensed professions, but outside of that, skills are what create income always. A skill compounds faster than a credential when it directly increases your earning power. If you can sell, explain value, handle objections, and close, you get paid. If you can code and build something that works, someone will hire you. If you can edit or market and help grow revenue or attention, you don't stay unemployed long. These skills pay you back every year you keep them sharp. But be careful, there's an entire industry built on selling dreams, expensive courses, countdown timers, only 5 spots left, and lifestyles that are usually rented. Real education feels boring at first. It looks like rewatching tutorials, redoing the same exercise, and getting feedback that stings a little. If it promises transformation without effort, it's not education, it's entertainment. Now let's talk about the decisions that quietly kill progress, not overnight, and not dramatically, but slowly. Liabilities. And the biggest one in your 20s is cars. Most people don't buy transportation, they buy a payment that shows up every single month for 5 to 7 years and steals their future investing power. Think about it, a $500 car payment isn't just $500, it's the investments that never happened. A car isn't freedom if it owns your cash flow. Reliable, used, paid off as fast as possible, that's leverage. The freedom isn't the car itself, it's not having a payment attached to your life. Now compare that to an asset. If real estate is an option, think creatively house hacking, buying a place and renting out a room or two, letting someone else cover most of the mortgage while you build equity. Assets reduce pressure, liabilities increase it. Pressure forces bad decisions, bad jobs. You can't leave debt, you can't escape choices you didn't want to make. And most of the time it all started with a payment that felt harmless. Finally, the most underrated leverage of all, health. Not the flashy kind, not gym selfies, but the boring kind that actually works. Health isn't self-care, it's performance. Your ability to focus through a long day, to make good decisions when things get stressful, to execute even when motivation disappears. No energy means no follow-through. You can have the perfect plan, the best side hustle idea, the smartest investment strategy. But if you're exhausted, it doesn't matter the plan never gets executed. Think about the difference between someone who sleeps 5 hours and lives on caffeine, and someone who sleeps 7 or 8, moves a bit, and eats decently. One misses workouts, deadlines, and opportunities. The other shows up again and again. Sleep, movement, decent food, not because it's virtuous, but because wealth is built by people who can show up consistently for years. All of these decisions share one thing: they don't feel impressive in the moment. No applause, no instant reward. But together, they quietly stack leverage until life starts feeling lighter. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't fail financially because they're lazy, stupid, or unlucky. They fail because they misunderstand how progress actually works. They expect results too early, invest for a year, maybe 2. And when nothing dramatic happens, they assume it's broken and stop. But wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows quietly for a long time, and then suddenly it does. Most people quit right before that moment. Another mistake that's even more common is trying to do everything at once. Side hustles, investing, real estate, travel, health, personal development, all at the same time. That sounds ambitious, but it's actually a recipe for burnout. When everything is a priority, nothing is, and momentum never gets a chance to form. People who win this game don't do more things, they do fewer things in the right order. They stack leverage, one system supporting the next. Then there's the quiet killer nobody wants to talk about: social pressure. Looking rich, feeling behind, upgrading lifestyle, just to keep pace with people who are also stuck. This is where most people lose. They trade long-term freedom for short-term validation. A nicer car, a nicer apartment, a lifestyle they haven't earned yet. Wealth doesn't disappear overnight. It leaks through impatience, comparison, and quitting systems that were working just slowly. If there's one thing to remember, it's this: wealth is quiet at first. No fireworks, no big moments, no applause. It looks like boring habits, old cars, saying no more than yes, doing things that don't feel impressive. And then one day it stops being hard. Bills don't feel heavy anymore. Decisions don't feel urgent. Money stops controlling your mood, not because you got lucky, but because the system finally has enough momentum. Most people ask the wrong question. When will I be rich? That question creates impatience, and impatience kills compounding. The better question is quieter. What is today's decision doing for me 10 years from now? That question changes everything. It changes what you buy, what you ignore, what you're willing to look boring for, and it pulls you out of comparison and into direction. You don't need to do everything in this video. You just need to start with one thing and stay long enough for it to matter. That's how leverage works. If this video helped you see the game more clearly hit, like, not for the algorithm, but for yourself, it's a small signal that you're choosing the long game. And if you want to keep learning how systems beat shortcuts, subscribe, because this channel isn't about hacks. It's about building something that actually lasts.